The challenge is Metroid. The power is Nintendo. Defend the planet Xephus against the evil Mother Brain.
Let's go all the way back to August of 1987, where the iconic series would get its start on the NES. At this point in time, the NES was in full stride, with games such as The Legend of Zelda launching a few weeks earlier, and Super Mario Bros. 2 years prior. Simply titled, Metroid. Metroid is a sci-fi action-adventure game set on the alien planet Zebes. You play the role of Samus Aran, a bounty hunter who is on a mission to eliminate the parasitic organisms known as Metroids, who were stolen by a group of space pirates from a galactic Federation research station. Equipped with the power suit and an array of weapons such as missiles, the ice beam, wave beam, and the morph ball with its bombs, Samus must traverse the maze-like planet and take down the leader of the space pirates, Mother Brain. The game will have you traveling back and forth in a non-linear fashion, exploring to find weapons and upgrades that allow you to reach previously inaccessible areas to progress the game. Metroid can be pretty difficult. For one, it starts you off with only 30 health, despite the fact that you can have up to 99 by picking drops up from enemies. As you progress, you'll collect energy tanks, which is incredibly clutch, especially early in the game before collecting the Varia suit, which reduces damage taken. This difficulty is further increased by the fact that Metroid on the NES does not feature a save system, instead opting for a password screen. Upon dying, you will be met with a long password that can be entered from the main menu, allowing you to retain all the items you've collected, but with a huge downside. It spawns you back in the very first area, and with only 30 health. Yup, you heard that correctly. Only 30. While you do still have your energy tanks, they're all empty, which means you'll have to safely make your way to some enemies that are good for farming health and begin filling your life back up, which can take upwards to 20 minutes. Despite these downsides, Metroid was a critical and commercial success upon release, with fans and critics alike praising things such as the eerie atmosphere, great soundtrack, and if you enjoy classic games from the NES era, Metroid is an absolute must-play. Before moving on to our next game, I just want to state a couple of fun facts. Metroid was strongly influenced by the movie Alien, even naming the space pirate Commander Ridley after the film's director, and even having the monster's physical appearance share similarities with the aliens. Metroid was also one of the first games to star a female protagonist, with the game's manual keeping this a secret by referring to Samus as a he, and the player only finding out the bounty hunter's real identity by completing the game in under a certain amount of hours. 4 years later, Nintendo would release a sequel titled Metroid 2: Return of Samus. Instead of launching on Nintendo's newest console, which had come out just 1 year prior, they decided Metroid 2 would be a Game Boy game. A quick note in regards to this decision is that back when Metroid 2 launched, only the first Game Boy model was available, meaning the game was only playable on the monochrome green-tinted screen of the original Game Boy. Later models, such as the Pocket and Color, would allow you to experience the game in black and white and color respectively. Return of Samus was also one of several Game Boy games that received its own unique color palette when played in the Super Nintendo's Super Game Boy adapter. Metroid 2's plot takes place on the Metroid's homeworld of SR-388. Where after heavy consideration, the Galactic Federation decided it was time to eradicate the Metroid species. However, after the Federation had lost contact with the first 3 teams they had sent, they called upon the one person they knew could get the job done: Samus Aran. The gameplay here is similar to its predecessor in the sense that you traverse a maze-like world, collecting items and power-ups to access new areas. We have several returning upgrades such as the Varia suit and missiles, but we would also see new items introduced like the Space Jump and Spider Ball, a Morph Ball variant that allows the player to stick to surfaces and go up walls and across ceilings to reach new locations. The story itself is focused on taking out all Metroids, with a counter in the bottom right corner indicating how many are left. You won't just be eliminating Metroids you know from the first game, with Return of Samus having you take down Metroids from each step of the evolution, like the Alpha Metroids early in the game and the Omega Metroids later, ending in a battle with the Queen Metroid. The end of this game shows Samus come across a small Metroid that hatches and imprints on Samus, viewing her as its mother. It follows the player to her ship. I want you to keep this in mind, as it will be an integral piece of the next game's plot. Metroid 2: Return of Samus was well received upon launch and garnered mostly favorable reviews, with some praising its graphics and save system, which was a notable upgrade over the previous game's password screen. In retrospect though, some fans do consider this to be a weaker title in the series, using its slightly more linear gameplay as a point of reference. In my humble opinion, I enjoy Metroid 2, but I can definitely see the game being hard to get into for newer gamers due to the limitations of the Game Boy. Even so, I would give this game a recommendation, as I believe it's a solid entry and one of the better of the classic Game Boy games. 2.5 years later, the sky would split open, and descending from the heavens above, cloaked in golden rays of light as soft angelic voices sang, was Super Metroid. Okay, well, maybe that's not exactly how it happened, but close enough.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
In April of 1994, Nintendo released Super Metroid, the game that solidified the series' spot among gaming legends. Super Metroid, also known as Metroid 3, is a direct sequel to Return of Samus. The game starts out with a cutscene, catching the player up on the events leading up to now. After the events at the end of Metroid 2, Samus delivered the baby Metroid to Research Station Ceres. Feeling that all was well, Samus then decided to leave. However, she didn't get far before receiving a distress signal. The station she had just left was under attack. This is where the player takes over. The gameplay here is the same formula you've come to know and love, but on steroids, with a massive arsenal of weapons and items this time around. Though as you would expect, you just start out with the basic power suit and arm cannon, and you'll get the upgrades as you progress. Super Metroid wastes no time in setting the dark and eerie tone. When traveling through the research station, you come across the same room from the intro, except here, you'll see the Metroid is missing and the bloodied bodies of the scientists laying on the ground around the broken container. A few rooms later, you'll see the Metroid larva is on the floor, and after a few seconds, Ridley is revealed holding its container. A showdown with Samus ensues, then Ridley flees with the Metroid, and the station goes into a self-destruct sequence. We then see Samus and her gunship following Ridley to the planet Zebes, the same planet where the first game on NES took place. Where upon landing, Samus notices this place has been rebuilt by space pirates who occupy it once again. I have always loved the attention to detail in Super Metroid. Like here when you first travel through the old Torian where you fought Mother Brain, but now it's foggy and abandoned. As I mentioned, the gameplay is just like the NES game, but with tighter controls, an incredible soundtrack, and beautiful graphics, some of the best the Super Nintendo has to offer. The items and upgrade here are just as great, with things like power bombs, X-ray visor, gravity suit, and a speed booster all making their debut. Super Metroid would also introduce a handy little mechanic that would become a series staple: wall jumping. Super Metroid was a huge success in sales, critics, and fans, and for good reason. It's not just considered by many to be the best Metroid game, but one of the best video games of all time. If you haven't tried this one out yet, then you have no idea what you're missing out on, and I could not recommend it enough. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. We have part 2 coming at you soon, which will include Metroid Fusion all the way up to Dread. And make sure to let me know down in the comments, what's your favorite Metroid game? Until next time, Indominus out.